Okay, just checking something there, folks, but hold on for a sec. Let me get my mic over here and turn this on. There we go. Sorry about that. And yeah, good morning. It is 8:25. Started this actually around 8:20, but yeah, good morning. It's about 8:25. And now I come on here, and as you can see by the title of this live stream, I'm here to talk about two things that already OTRS Central and Deluxe Man have kind of talked about a little bit. It's good. Get some coffee in there. But that is, of course, the Greatest Royal Rumble, which is coming up on April 27th, as well as next week's Superstar Shakeup. Now, let's talk about the Superstar Shakeup, for example, at first, I should say. Because as of right now, hold on for a sec, I gotta check something. I was just checking something, folks. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I want to talk about basically two things. The greatest Royal Rumble ever and Superstar Shakeup. Now, like I said, there's just in the mic there. When it comes to the Superstar Shakeup, like I said, some of the stars that debuted or got called up from NXT this past Monday, as well as this past Tuesday, on SmackDown, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they debuted on those shows that they're going to remain on those shows. That sometimes, you need that sometimes when it comes to certain superstars, you just need that extra oomph, if you know what I mean. And that's exactly what, Lashley, No Way Jose, Ember Moon, Authors of Pain. That's exactly what they got on Monday. They got that extra oomph because these are people, as crazy as this might sound, the WWE is obviously going to invest a lot of time into to probably push to that next level. As far as the iconic duo, or iconic, if you will, I think everybody pretty much knew that they were going to be SmackDown bound, at least for their debut. It doesn't necessarily mean that Iconic's going to be a SmackDown tag team or SmackDown group. They could end up being put on Raw. They could be separated, for all we know. Peyton may end up on SmackDown. Billy may end up on Raw, for all we know. So those sort of things can end up happening. Now, with that said, though, everybody's questioning, who's going to end up where. Like, what teams, what people are going to end up where and for what reasons. And in my opinion, folks, excuse me, getting over a cold here, at least trying to get over one. Um, but like I said, everybody wants to know who's going to end up where. Like, what teams are going to end up here? What teams are going to end up being split? Are going to end up being split up? What superstars, men or women, are going to end up where? That's a big question. And one thing that some people have noted is that those that kind of been doing the job lately, especially on Monday and on Tuesday, are the stars that are going to end up switching shows. So, in other words, some people are saying that since Alexa took the pinfall to Ember Moon, that Alexa Bliss is on her way out of Raw and on her way back to SmackDown. And that's possibly what could be happening. The same with Charlotte. Some think that since Charlotte jobbed out to Carmella and let Carmella cash in her briefcase successfully, that Charlotte's on her way out. And that could potentially be what happens as well. We're not really sure. Especially if there's a rumor going around that next year's WrestleMania main event, the headline match, the one that closes out the show, is going to focus around Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte. And the only way that you can make that happen is to have both on the same show, or if you have Ronda Rousey win the Women's Royal Rumble, which you got to believe they're going to have another Women's Royal Rumble. If they just started it this year, there's no doubt they'll probably want to do another. So unless you have Ronda win that, or you have Ronda win a Women's Elimination Chamber, the only other way that you could possibly make this happen is to have both on the same brand. So that's one. So basically, a lot of people are pretty much kind of getting this feeling and getting this idea of who's going to end up where in the Superstar Shakeup, because it's only like a natural kind of fit or scenario. Well, I look at it this way. If they switch Charlotte and Alexa back to the brands that they came from originally, I'm okay with that, because a lot has changed pretty much on some of the brands. Alexa could get into a feud with Carmella, come off as a babyface maybe, because, let's be honest, you could make her a heel as much as you want. You can make her a heel as much as you want, but she's the kind of star that fans want to cheer, no matter whether or not she has a manipulative, self-centered attitude. Fans like her. They want to cheer her. And I'm guessing that if they would have sent her back to SmackDown, she's got a great opportunity to, start a feud with Carmella or start a feud with Iconic. I'm just saying. It's possible. It could be either way. It could be possible that something happens either way. Now, if Charlotte goes back, Charlotte, it's pretty much not really much has changed there since Charlotte left, but you do have a few new faces. Like if they keep Ember Moon over there, hey, Charlotte Ember Moon. If they decide to call up some other women during the shakeup, possibilities are endless. But I look at it this way. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Even though it may look like Alexa and Charlotte may switch, I can't really say if they will or they won't. I can say this, though. I do believe Asuka is going to head to SmackDown. I mean, think about it. Why would you have her challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship if your intent originally was to place her on SmackDown? So my opinion is Asuka will probably end up going to SmackDown, and it would make sense Because if Charlotte's going to Raw, then you need someone of equal value to go over to SmackDown, and that's Asuka. Asuka, in a sense, no matter what reports say about WWE and how they feel about her, how they feel, oh, she's not a mainstream star and never will be, Asuka is of equal value. She had the match of the night with Charlotte on Sunday, so Asuka, to me, would be the most logical choice to be SmackDown bound. And think about it this way. Not only would she be the most logical choice to be SmackDown bound, if you will, but she would be the perfect first opponent for Carmella. Think about this. There were reports going around that Carmella would fail to cash in her briefcase. But the moment we saw Charlotte beat Asuka, we knew Carmella was going to probably win, was going to be successful. But the original plan was for her to cash in on Asuka and fail. I think that's what they originally wanted to go to. Till they decided to switch things up. So my thought process is this. If Asuka ends up being SmackDown bound during the Superstar Shakeup, she will be Carmella's first opponent. And don't be surprised if they take the belt off Carmella sooner than later, because the original intention was to have her go bankrupt when she would cash in. I know people are thinking they never would have done that. Believe me, they would have. They would have. Because the way they were portraying her, they would have done it. So I believe Asuka is one of the stars that's going to switch brands. She's going to go to SmackDown. And like I said, that would basically make sense if you're going to bring Charlotte over to Raw, which would allow you to start building to her and Rousey at WrestleMania next year. Hold on for a sec, folks. Sorry about that. But like I said, it would make sense if you want to plant the seeds for Charlotte and Ronda at WrestleMania next year. It makes a lot of sense. So to me, if Charlotte has to go back to Raw, Asuka's coming to SmackDown. No doubt about it. And, putting her on SmackDown could really refreshen her in a sense, because you could have her go up against some new, if not familiar, talent. For example, if Iconic, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce are SmackDown bound, and they're not going to switch brands or be split up, it makes sense to have Asuka go against them because they're very familiar with each other. So yeah, I think Asuka, if any superstar is going to move, if there's any predictable superstar that's going to switch brands, it's Asuka. I really do think that's going to happen. I do believe that Miz is heading back to SmackDown. I really do. I think he's heading back there as well. The reason I say that is because they've been teasing certain situations of what if he ends up on the same brand as Daniel, and the only way you can make that happen is if both on the same brand. And right now, SmackDown is in desperate need, whether people want to admit it or not, of an injection of charisma. And The Miz, whether you love him or you hate him, brings that charisma to the table. And he could bring that back to SmackDown in a major, major way. So don't be surprised if Miz ends up back on SmackDown. That's one, I think, scenario I see happening. Another one I see happening as well is I see the Balor Club, all three. Believe it or not, I see all three Balor Club members, Finn, Gallows, Anderson, ending up on SmackDown. It'd be a new change of pace for them. You have the opportunity that if they don't move AJ to Raw, which I don't think they will, that you have the opportunity to get a dream rematch between Balor and Styles, as well as you inject that tag team division once again with some new blood. And think about it this way: if you're not going to put the Authors of Pain over on SmackDown to match up against the Bludgeon Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, the Good Brothers, are the best option you have. Sounds strange, yes, but they are indeed the best option you have. As far as who would go and join Charlotte on Raw, it's kind of up in the air because we don't really know exactly. In fact, I'll check. Let's see. Again, I don't know who would end up on who would join AJ. I mean, not AJ, but Charlotte on Raw. But I think, if anything, I think Jinder Mahal would end up on Raw as and take the United States Championship with him, and thus you would probably send Seth Rollins over to SmackDown. So that way, you'd still be able to do your triple threat at Backlash for the Intercontinental Championship. But the difference is it would be representing SmackDown and not Raw. You still could do your four-way ladder match at Greatest Royal Rumble ever. The only difference is you have 3 SmackDown stars and 1 Raw star. See if I can find the roster here. So that's a possibility as well. I mean, we saw that happen last year. When Miz went to Raw, he brought the Intercontinental Championship with him. When the United States Champion went to SmackDown, Kevin Owens went to SmackDown, he brought the United States Championship with him. So my opinion, like I said, is I believe that if Seth Rollins ends up on SmackDown, Jinder Mahal goes to Raw, Seth Rollins is ending up on SmackDown. And again, like I said, you could still do your triple threat or your one-on-one match at Backlash for the Intercontinental title, as well as still do your fatal 4-way ladder match. The only exception is you would have 3 SmackDown stars and 1 Raw star in that ladder match. And as far as Backlash goes, it would now be a SmackDown branded match for the Intercontinental Championship. Who else do I think can go over to Raw from SmackDown? I think, honestly, it may sound crazy, but I think Mike Kanellis. I think Mike Kanellis can end up on Raw. He's in much need of a change of pace, and I think being on a show that right now has actually been written a lot better and a lot more competent than people have thought of, I think is probably the best opportunity for him to have. So I definitely see Mike Kanellis going over there, and then later on, when she's ready to come back, Maria joining him. I can see Mojo Rawley going over to Raw. I can really see that be a good fit for him as well. Um, I definitely would see maybe Ty Dillinger going over to Raw. So that could be a good fit for him as well. Those are just names. Those are just some of the names I think can benefit from a change going from SmackDown to Raw. Different place, different environment, fresh matchups. Um, and again, and honestly, I could also see someone like Randy Orton going back to Raw, but I don't think they want to crowd it too much. So I think Randy's going to stay on SmackDown. If he ends up on Raw, then they need somebody over there. But I think he's going to end up staying on SmackDown because it looks like what they want to do at Raw is focus more on the future now, if you will. So I think that's what. So I think Randy going to Raw, it could happen, but I think he's going to end up staying on SmackDown. Tag teams, like I said, that could come over to SmackDown, I think from Raw, I think are the Good Brothers. I think the Revival might jump, if you will. And in exchange, I think you're going to end up having the New Day, all three members, as well as you're going to probably have the Usos going to Raw. So you're going to have sort of a balancing out a little bit. And I think maybe even the Ascension joins them as well. So you would have basically you would have Breezango, you'd have Breezango, you would have the Revival, Good Brothers, the Bludgeon Brothers, and Shelton Benjamin, Chad Gable, part of your tag team division there, which is all right, decent size. And then on the other hand, you would have like Matt Hardy, Bray Wyatt. You would have You would have the Ascension. You would have who did I say? New Day and the Usos thrown in there along with maybe Sheamus and Cesaro. So and Titus Worldwide, which to me is a good trade-off no matter how you look at it. And then if there was anybody to be brought up from NXT, tagged, any other superstars or teams, I think honestly TM61 could end up coming up to the main roster. It looks like right now, according to a spoiler I read, they're going to try to turn that team heel. So they may do it, they may not, but I think either way it could work. So yeah, NXT wise, team wise from NXT, tag team wise, I could see going to SmackDown. I could see TM61 going there, and then from NXT to Raw, I could probably see, because according to the spoilers, they kind of did the job already. I could see heavy machinery heading to Raw if they decide to do that. Singles talent from NXT, it's a pick 'em, but I think Andreas Giannamis is SmackDown bound. I really do. I think Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are going to be Raw bound because they could really benefit from there, especially if it's being written right. So I could see those NXT talents coming up. And then maybe from the women, I could see Kairi Sane ending up on Raw to kind of fill the void of Asuka leaving and going to SmackDown. And then SmackDown wise, I could see maybe Bianca Bianca Belair going to SmackDown. I could see that. And if there's anybody they want to promote from 205 to any one of the main rosters, I think TJP has already made it clear that he wants the Intercontinental Championship. So if they want to follow through on that, put them on whatever brand that's going to be on. And then I think the other person that needs to be promoted up is Tony Nese from 205 Live. I think he would really benefit from going to possibly SmackDown. Actually, Tony Nese, I think, would benefit being on Raw. He's used to it, and he's got the look that would fit for Raw. And then I think honestly, that's about it. UK wise, it's kind of hard to decide from the UK who they would throw to the main rosters in the shakeup. So we'll have to just wait on that. But those are just talents that I believe, in my opinion, my IMO, if you will, that I feel are gonna end up going to different brands from where they are right now. I mean, I know some people might find some of those choices hard to believe, but when you think about it, wouldn't it benefit wouldn't it benefit some of these talents to have a changing atmosphere? I'm just saying. So, yeah, that's what I believe. That's who I believe, in my opinion, are going to end up switching brands. Um, as far as the greatest Royal Rumble goes, um, as far as that goes, I don't know what to say about it. It's like when you look at it, when you look at what they're doing here, because according to let me get back to that page there. When you take a look at it, it's taking place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. It's taking place in the King Abdul Sports City King Abdul International Stadium. That stadium, from what I read online, if I can pull it up, that stadium seats about 62,241. Now, if you add floor seats, you're probably looking at about 73,000. I'm just saying. Now, according to reports, the reason the greatest Royal Rumble is happening there is it is part of a 10-year it is part of a 10-year multi-platform partnership or strategic a multi-platform partnership between WWE and the Saudi General Sports Authority in support of Saudi Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia's social and economic reform program. That's what they say it's about. And from what I could see with some of the pictures I see here, it's a decently big stadium. And then, like I say, you add floor seats, you'll probably have a massive, you have a capacity of 75 to maybe 80,000 people. That's what I see happening. Now, one of the biggest things that has been noticeable about this, and I'll talk about that when I get right back. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. I had to let my dog out. But anyway, what I'm saying is, basically, one of the biggest news items coming out of this this whole announcement of the 50 of this Greatest Royal Rumble event. One of the things coming out of it, one of the news items coming out of it, folks, is the fact that it is. I think the Schleg Daddy, Jeff Siegel at OTR Central, kind of used a very humorous analogy that this is actually all sausage and no biscuits, or this is all just one meal of one flavor and no variety. Because one of the news items coming out of this is the fact that the women of WWE are not going to be allowed to compete. Yeah. The women of World Wrestling Entertainment, the ones that basically for the past several years have helped bring the women's division back to the forefront, are not going to be allowed to compete at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Why? Because basically, from what I understand, this portion of the Middle East is still kind of, there are certain things about this part of the Middle East that's stuck in the dark ages, that they're kind of stuck in the past. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. They have made progress by trying to allow women to vote, attend sporting events or whatever, without having to get the permission of the males. So, without having to get the permission of a male figure, they are allowed to. They are making progress by allowing women to have equal rights at the event. They're allowing women to have equal rights at the event. Well, not at the event, but they're allowing women to. Well, hold on. I'm going to bring up the article where I read this. It says, this is bleedingcool.com. This is what they said. This is what they said, according to Bleeding Cool. It says, unfortunately, WWE's own female superstars will not be wrestling at the event, as that would obviously give the women in attendance the wrong idea. For example, they might feel encouraged to perform a suplex or a powerbomb the next time a man tells them they need a male guardian's permission to do something like get married or travel within the country. The ability to attend professional wrestling events follows other breakthroughs in Saudi Arabian women's rights, such as gaining the right to vote in 2015, the right to drive cars in 2017, and so on. It said the World Economic Forum ranked Saudi Arabia 141 out of 144 countries in terms of women's rights in 2016. It says, but now that women can attend pro wrestling events, the country could end up rising as high as 130 or 137. Yeah. So basically, they are making progress by allowing women to now vote and then recently allowing them to drive. But all the other stuff is a no go, which doesn't make any sense in the eyes of a lot of people. Because it's like, well, I mean, even Delexman and OTR Central bring this up. It's like, why would you want to hold an event like the Greatest Royal Rumble in a country, in a city, in a country, in a venue, or in a venue that's located in a city, in a country that even though it's making a bit of progress, it's still backwards? You know, to them, it's like it doesn't make any sense to hold this event, in a country like Saudi Arabia or in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, if they're not up to date with the times. And yes, it is and yeah, I understand it's a big cultural difference, big cultural difference. I mean, yeah, they are succeeding in progressing women's rights in that country by finally allowing them to vote and drive cars. But the rest, apparently, depending on who's in charge, takes a lot more time to progressively get to. Don't get me wrong, if this situation between WWE and the Saudi General Sports Authority is a 10-year agreement to help support Saudi Vision 2030, then to me, in 10 years, things are going to probably change. There might be more progression. Who knows? Maybe by the next, maybe I wouldn't say by next year, but let's say in another few years, let's say within the next 2 to 3 years, things change to the point that the next time they have another major event over in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia at this stadium, that maybe the next time, within the next 3 to 4 years, the women may be able to participate. Hold on for a sec. Like I said, who's to say that within the next, several years, that, like I said, within the next, several years, a few years, that the next time they hold something like this in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, or any part of Saudi Arabia, that, the things might not, that the women won't be able to participate or even main event. Because things can change in a 10-year span. Things can change in a 10-year span. But I kind of get what OTRS Central and Delexman and everybody that's talked about this are saying. They're like, why hold an event like this first ever 50-man Royal Rumble, if there isn't any equality in this event? It's like, I'll give you an example. It's like with this. These are all the characters you can collect, right? Who's to say that if I open this up, and I already did, you probably saw a video on that, or you did see the video, but who's to say that when you open this up, that the only character you'll get is a Princess Cadence, and then the next one is Princess Cadence, And all these are divided by code, like A, B, A, A, C. Who's to say all the codes from A, B, A, C, all that, alphabetically, if you will, who's to say that when it shows you you're supposed to get a variety, you're supposed to get them all, if you will, that all of a sudden when you open all these different packages with all these different codes, it's all the same character. It's like, where's the variety? Where's the change? Where's the multicultural flavor? You kind of get what I'm saying, right? It's like if I was to open that and all I got was cadence in one bag, cadence in another bag, cadence. And they're all different codes on lettering codes of what kind of characters you're supposed to get. Who's to say, if you will, who's to say what my reaction would be? Would I be glad to get maybe 2 cadences? Yeah, absolutely. But if I got a whole freaking 24 pack of them and it's nothing but cadence, it's like, to me, it's like, well, where's the rest of the characters you advertised? It would be basically, it wouldn't make sense. It'd feel like, hey, I'm getting ripped off here. That this is unfair. I paid this much to get all these characters in this box, which is usually on display at stores, and I'm getting nothing but just one character in every bag. I'm just getting nothing but the same character in every bag. It's like, where is the variety? Where is the equality? Where's the fairness? And to me, I could see definitely where people like OTR Central, Intellect Man, and all of them are coming from. It's like, if you're going to hold an event like this with this historic first ever 50-man Royal Rumble match, why hold it in a country in a portion of the country that is so backwards it doesn't make sense? I mean, what was it? Not even that couple months ago, they were in the Middle East, around Saudi Arabia, around those regions, that they had the women compete, that the women were able to compete. The only exception is they had to be fully clothed. Okay, fine. Couldn't you make that exception here? Couldn't you allow the women to be fully clothed here? Couldn't you make that same exception? Apparently not. Apparently not. I mean, what do you want the women to do to be able to compete? Do you want them to cover their faces up too? Ooh, with masks and all that, and act like the female luchadors? And the only thing that identifies them is their hair and maybe what it says on the back saying, oh, this is Alexa Bliss. Oh, this is Sasha Banks. Is that the only way? Because, again, I get where everybody's coming from. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And the other thing that doesn't make any sense is WWE is putting more focus on this right now and less focus on Backlash. I mean, yeah, they are trying to balance the things out by saying, okay, we got to focus on this thing, but we also on the Greatest Royal Rumble, but we also got to focus on Backlash. Look, I admit they're trying, but it's not working out for them very well, is it? Especially when you look at the match card. When you look at the match card, you get this. You get the Greatest Royal Rumble match ever. You get John Cena and Triple H. You get a casket match with The Undertaker against Rusev. You get a Raw Tag Team Championship match with Cesaro and Sheamus facing either Wyatt, Hardy, or The Revival. You have a U.S. Championship match to be determined. We don't know who's going to be defending there. Same with the WWE Championship. You have a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. And then the one that really has gotten a lot of people kind of upset, if not, well, wasn't upset, but not totally upset, but more along the lines of, really, WWE, you got to stoop to this to get Roman Reigns as your champion? or you got to go out of your way and do this just to make Roman your champion. And what I'm talking about is the main event, or at least one of the main events, is a steel cage match for the Universal Championship between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And OTR Central has talked about this. The Lexman has talked about this. I'm sure No DQ is going to talk about this. Chase Oliver will talk about this. Pro Wrestling Report, PWR show will talk about this. Maybe Solomonster will talk about it. But the point is, what it looks like what you're doing here from their perspective is you, the WWE, more importantly Vince McMahon, you're so determined to make Roman Reigns your champion that you hold off at the last minute at WrestleMania of crowning him champion there and decide, hey, we got this greatest Royal Rumble event taking place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where the crowd there isn't as hardcore or passionate as the United States and is more, I guess, respectable or more easily manipulated. That, hey, in front of this huge crowd, this historical event, we could put the belt on Roman there. And you kind of see where some people are kind of like very critical of that. It's like, so what you're saying is you put together this event not only to coincide with the Saudi General Sports Authority in support of Saudi Vision 2030 as part of this 10-year strategic agreement, but you're also mainly doing it not only because you want to have the biggest Royal Rumble ever, which you could do for a regular Royal Rumble event if you wanted to do that anyway, but you're mainly doing it, in their eyes, the main priority, the real main reason from a WWE Vince McMahon perspective, the reason you're doing it is because you want a more subtle, more easily manipulated crowd to crown Roman Reigns your champion in front of that won't be as hostile or as hardcore as what you've had in the past. That's basically what a lot of fans are critical about. It's not just why have an event if you can't have women of the women's revolution that's supposed to be on equal billing with the men. Why have them not be able to perform, or why have an event in a country where you can't have even your women that have pretty much taken your divisions to another level, perform in front of probably one of the biggest crowds they've ever been in front of? Why hold it in a country that won't allow you to do that? But also, why hold it if one of your main reasons of holding it is to crown Roman Reigns Universal Champion in front of a crowd that you believe you could easily manipulate and won't be so hostile or hardcore as what you have here in the States? You can kind of understand how people feel very frustrated about that. It's like, really? So that's how you're going to get the belt off Brock? By putting this thing together in what is essentially, as some people put it, a glorified house show? It doesn't make sense. It's like, if you were going to pull the trigger, just pull it at WrestleMania. Don't have to, don't go and say, hey, we're going to do this just to make it happen because no one will really complain. What sense is it going to make anyway? Here's the thing, and I think the Lexman and OTR Central make it clear. What sense does it make anyway that even if you succeed in finally crowning Roman your Universal Champion, what sense does it make when you come back to the States, people that have watched it on the WWE Network, either live when it happens or after they get home? Why do that if you know the reception and reaction he's going to get is going to be downright negative? It's like, yeah, it might come off in a positive way, like the way you've always intended it to in Saudi Arabia, but what sense is that? But how does that balance out and equal out to him coming back to the U.S. and getting booed at every freaking arena and venue you go to. I mean, people here are not dumb, WWE. They're not dumb. They know that the reason you're doing it, the real reason you're doing this, is not because of everything I've mentioned, this partnership and all that, but you're mainly we want to hold the biggest Royal Rumble match ever. No, the reason you're doing this is because you're trying to find a more subtle, more manipulative environment to where an audience that you can easily not have that you won't have to worry about being angry at the fact that we're going to put the belt on Roman and take it off Brock. It doesn't make sense. I mean, here's the thing. Brock Lesnar's supposed to be this part-time guy, right? Then why would he want to bother going to Saudi Arabia to defend his championship? You can have Roman compete you could take the ladder match and you can make it a fatal 5-way. You can have Roman compete in that. It makes just as much sense. Do you think Brock likes the idea that he's got to go out of his way to another country that he probably has never been in, and go into a steel and go and perform in front of 75 to 80,000 people in what is basically dubbed by many as a glorified house show, and inside a steel cage, which some would say from a storyline perspective could favor Brock, and end up dropping the strap to Roman Reigns there because WWE didn't have the balls, if you will, excuse my language, God, or the guts, I should say, not the balls, but the guts, to pull the trigger at Mania. This is essentially WWE's, to me, I think it's WWE's way of saying, hey, look, as far as North America goes, and maybe even the UK, this Roman Reigns thing has been a failure. But even though it's been a failure here and in places like the UK, as far as other countries, let's say Saudi Arabia, it has not been a failure. It's going to be a success. And again, what sense does that make? Hey, knowing that he's going to get booed anyway when he gets back here. If not booed more so than he ever has been before, because fans are pretty much going to know that you basically had this rematch take place over in Saudi Arabia to give him the belt in front of a more, I guess you could say, respectable crowd, a crowd that you can easily manipulate. Let's be honest, WWE, you should know by now that Saudi Arabia crowd that's going to be there, they're already on their internet computers and they're looking up Roman Reigns. They're hearing what people like I have to say. And you know what's going to happen? You think Roman won't get booed there? He'll get booed there. Because those people that are going to be in attendance, they're going to look up information. They're going to hear about how people don't like Roman, how this and that. It's going to backfire in your face. It's guaranteed to. Now, unless you don't pull the trigger at this house show and give Roman the belt, then that's a different story. But why? But then why hold a rematch 19 days later in front of this huge crowd at this historical event, this first of many in the next 10 years? If you weren't planning to use this historical event to be the forefront to crown Roman Universal Champion, to a lot of people, it makes a lot of sense that that's exactly what you're doing, but it doesn't make sense seeing as though, business-wise and audience-wise, it might be a better environment for this to happen in, but when you get him back here to the States, what then? Yeah, WWE, you got to start thinking about how that's going to work out. I mean, you're currently still trying to put the final notches here and there on this event. Hopefully the final notches make you realize, we're going to have to figure out a way to make sure after we put the belt on him, how he's going to be positively received when we go back to the States. So I just hope WWE has a plan in place. Hey, for the hostileness they're going to get when they come back with Roman Reigns as Universal Champion if they go that route. So, but yeah, those are just my thoughts on the upcoming Superstar Shakeup and the Greatest Royal Rumble Ever event. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. Thank you all for tuning in live this morning. I know it might have been early for some of you, so but I do appreciate you tuning in live, and giving me your thoughts. Possibly, I'm going to check that right now. I'm going to check that right now, folks. I guess nobody's commented. But yeah, again, thank you all for tuning in live. I really appreciate it. I really do. I really appreciate it. And that's all I'm really going to say, folks. So till next time, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for watching post live after it's already been uploaded. And I'll talk to you all later. Let me know what you all think down below. I would recommend you tune into the Lexman and OTR Central to hear their thoughts on this. And I will talk to you all later. God bless. Take care.